As he quickened his pace, the startled face of an elderly woman appeared above a patch of grass. She had been scratching about on the ground, apparently looking for something, and the sound of his footsteps brought a gasp to her lips. Dressed in a light, plain kimono, she would have been almost indistinguishable from the grass, except for the purple cord holding her cloak in place. Though her clothing was that of a layman, the kerchief hiding her round head was that of a nun. She was small of build and genteel in appearance. Musashi was as astonished as the woman. Another 3 or 4 steps and he might have trampled on her. "What are you looking for?" he asked genially. He glimpsed a string of coral prayer beads on her arm, just inside her sleeve, and a basket of tender wild plants in one hand. Her fingers and the beads trembled slightly. To put her at ease, Musashi said easily, "I'm surprised to see the greens up so early. I guess it's really getting to be spring. I see you have some nice parsley there, and some rape and cottonweed. Did you pick them all yourself?" The old nun, the old nun dropped the basket and ran, shouting, "Koetsu, Koetsu!" Musashi watched bemused as the little form retreated toward a slight rise in the otherwise flat field. From behind it rose a wisp of smoke. Thinking it would be a shame for her to lose her vegetables after going to all the trouble of finding them, he picked them up and, in basket in hand, started off after her. After a minute or two, after a minute or so, 2 men came into view. They had spread a rug on the sunny southern side of a gentle slope. There were also various implements used by devotees of the tea cult, including an iron kettle hanging over a fire and a pitcher of water to one side. Taking the natural surroundings for their garden, they had made themselves an open-air tea room. It also looked rather stylish and elegant. One of the men seemed to be a servant, while the other's white skin, smooth complexion, and well-composed features brought to mind a large china door representing a Kyoto aristocrat. He had a contented punch, self-assurance that reflected in his cheeks and in his posture. Koatsu, the name rang a bell, for there was at this time a very famous Honami Koatsu living in Kyoto. It was rumored with considerable envy that he had been granted an annual stipend of 1,000 bushels by the very wealthy Lord Maeder Toshii of Kaga. As an ordinary townsman, he could have lived magnificently on this alone, but in addition, she enjoined the special favor of Tokugawa Ieyasu and was frequently received in the homes of high noblemen. The greatest warriors of the land, it was said, felt constrained to dismount and walk by his shop on foot, so as not to give the impression that they were looking down on him. The family name came from their having taken up residence on Honami Lane, and Koetsu's business was the cleaning, polishing, and appraising of swords. His family had gained a reputation as early as the 14th century and had flourished during the Ashikaga period. They had later been patronized by such leading daimyo as Imagawa Yoshimoto, Oda Nobunaga, and Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Koetsu was known as a man of many talents. He painted, excelled as a ceramist, and lacquer maker, and was regarded as a connoisseur of art. He himself considers calligraphy to be his forte. In this field, he was generally ranked with acknowledged experts like Shokado Shoujo, Karasumaru Mitsuhiro, and Konoe Nobutada, the creator of the famous Samyakuin style, which was so popular these days. Despite his fame, Koetsu felt that he was not fully appreciated, or so it would seem from a story that was going around. According to this tale, he often visited the mansion of his friend Konoe Nobutada, who was not only a nobleman but currently minister of the left in the emperor's government. During one of these visits, the story went the talk turned naturally to calligraphy, and Nobutada asked Koetsu, who would you select as the three greatest calligraphers in the country? Without the slightest hesitation, Koetsu answered, the second is yourself, and then I suppose Shokado Shoujo. A little puzzled, Nobutada asked, you start with the second best, but who is the best? Koetsu, without so much as a smile, looked directly into his eyes and replied, I am, of course. Lost in thought, Musashi stopped a short distance from the group. Koetsu was holding a brush in his hand, and on his knees were several sheets of paper. He was studiously sketching the flow of water in a stream close by. This drawing, as well as earlier efforts lying scattered about on the ground, consisted solely of watery lines of a sort that, to Musashi's eye, any novice might be able to draw. Looking up, Koetsu said quietly, is something wrong? Then, with steady eyes, he took in the scene. Musashi on one side, and on the other, his mother trembling behind the servant. Musashi felt calmer in the presence of this man. He was clearly not the sort of person he came into contact with every day, but somehow he found him appealing. His eyes held a profound light. After a moment, they began to smile at Musashi, as if he were an old acquaintance. Welcome, young man. Has my mother done something wrong? I'm 48 myself, so you can imagine how old she is. She is very healthy, but there are times when she complains about her eyesight. If she's done anything she shouldn't, I hope you will accept my apologies. Placing his brush and pad on the small rag he was sitting on, he started to put his hands on the ground and make a deep bow. Hurriedly dropping to his knees, Musashi stopped Koetsu from bowing. Then you are her son? He asked in confusion. Yes, it is I who must apologize. I don't really know what made your mother afraid, but as soon as she saw me, she dropped her basket and ran off. Seeing she had spilled her greens made me feel guilty. I have brought the things she dropped. That's all. There's no need for you to bow. Laughing pleasantly, Koetsu turned to the Nan and said, did you hear that, mother? You had the wrong impression entirely. Immensely relieved, she ventured out from her place of refuge behind the servant. Do you mean the Ronin didn't intend to harm me? Harm? No, not at all. See, he's even brought back your basket. Wasn't that considerate of him? Oh, I'm sorry, said the Nan, bowing deeply, her forehead touching the prayer beads on her wrist. Quite cheerful now, she laughed as she turned to her son. I'm ashamed to admit it, she said, but when I first saw the young man, I thought I detected the smell of blood. Oh, it was frightening. I broke out in goose pimples. Now I see how foolish I was. The old woman's insight amazed Musashi. She had seen right through him and without really knowing, had put it very candidly. To this woman's delicate senses, he must indeed have seemed a terrifying, gory apparition. Koetsu, too, must have taken in his intense, penetrating look, his menacing mane of hair, that prickly, dangerous element that said he was ready to strike at the slightest provocation. Still, Koetsu seemed inclined to search out the good in him. If you are in no hurry, he said, stay and rest a while. It's so quiet and peaceful here, just sitting silently in these surroundings. I feel clean and fresh. If I pick a few more greens, I can make some nice gruel for you, said the man, and some tea or don't you like tea? In the company of mother and son, Musashi felt at peace with the world. He sheathed his bellicose spirit like a cat retreading its claws. In this pleasant atmosphere, it was hard to believe he was among perfect strangers. Before he realized it, he had removed his straw sandals and taken a seat on the rack. Taking the liberty of asking some questions, he learned that the mother, whose religious name was Myoshu, had been a good and faithful wife before becoming a nun, and that her son was indeed the celebrated aesthete and craftsman. Among swordsmen, there was not one worth his sword who did not know the name Honami. Such was the family's reputation for sound judgment with regard to swords. Musashi found it difficult to associate Koetsu and his mother with the picture he had of how such famous people should look. To him, they were simply ordinary people he had met by accident in a deserted field. This was the way he wanted it to be, for otherwise he himself might grow tense and spoil their picnic. Bringing the kettle for the tea, Myoshu asked her son, "How old do you suppose this lad is?" With a glance at Musashi, he replied, 25 or 6, I imagine. Musashi shook his head. "No, I'm only 23. Only 23, exclaimed Myoshu. She then proceeded to ask the usual questions: where his home was, whether his parents were still alive, who had taught him swordsmanship, and so on. She addressed him gently, as though he were her grandson, and this brought out the boy in Musashi. His manner of speech slipped into the youthful and informal, accustomed as he was to discipline and rigorous training, to spending all his time forging himself into a fine steel blade. He knew nothing of the more civilized side of life. As the old man talked, warmth spread through his weather-beaten body. Myoshu, Koetsu, the things on the rack, even the tea bowl, subtly fused into the atmosphere and became part of nature. But Musashi was impatient, his body too restless to sit still for long. It was pleasant enough while they were chatting, but when Myoshu began staring silently at the tea kettle and Koetsu turned his back to continue his sketching, Musashi became bored. What, he asked himself, do they find so entertaining about coming out here like this? Spring's only barely begun. It's still cold. If they wanted to pick wild greens, why not wait until it was warmer and more people were around? There would be lots of flowers and fresh green plants then, and if they want to enjoy a tea ceremony, why go to the trouble of lugging the kettle and tea bowls all the way out here? A well-known, prosperous family like theirs would surely have an elegant tea room in their house. Was it to sketch? Staring at Koetsu's bag, he found that by twisting a little to the side, he could see the moving brush, drawing nothing but the lines of flowing water. The artist kept his eyes on the narrow brook wending its way through the drying grass. He concentrated solely on the movement of the water, again and again trying to capture the flowing motion. But the exact feel seemed to elude him, and deterred, he went on drawing the lines over and over. Thought Musashi, drawing's not as easy as it looks, I guess. His ennui receding for the moment, he watched Koetsu's brush strokes with fascination. Koetsu, he thought, must feel very much as he himself did when he faced an enemy sword point to sword point. At some stage he would rise above himself and sense that he had become one with nature. No, not sense, because all sensation would be obliterated at that moment when his sword cut through his opponent. That magic instant of transcendence was all. Koetsu, still looking at the water as an enemy, he mused, That's why he can't draw it. He has to become one with it before he will succeed. With nothing to do, he was sliding from boredom into lethargy into this war, and this worried him. He must not let himself go slack even for a moment. He had to get away from here. I'm sorry I disturbed you, he said brusquely, and started retying his sandals. Oh, are you leaving so soon? Asked Myoshu. Koatsu turned around quietly and said, Can't you stay a little longer? Mother is going to make the tea now. I gather you are the one who had a bout with the master of the house of Yoshioka this morning. A little tea after a fight does you good, or at least that's what Lord Maeder says. Ieyasu, too. Tea is good for the spirit. I doubt whether there's anything better. In my opinion, action is born of quiet. Stay and talk. I will join you. So Koatsu knew about the fight. But maybe that was not so strange. The Rendaiji wasn't far away, only the next field over. A more interesting question was why he had said nothing about it so far. Was it simply that he regarded such matters as belonging to a world different from his own? Musashi took a second look at mother and son, then sat down again. If you insist, he said. We haven't much to offer, but we enjoy having you with us, said Koatsu. He put the cover on his ink box and placed it on his sketches to keep them from blowing away. In his hands the lid glittered like fireflies. It seemed to be sheathed in thick gold, with silver and mother-of-pearl inlay. Musashi leaned forward to inspect it. Now that it was resting on the carpet, it no longer gleamed so brightly. He could see that there was nothing at all gaudy about this. Its beauty was that of the gold leaf and color paintings in Momoyama castles, reduced many times in size. There was only a hint of something very ancient about it, a dull patina suggestive of faded glories. Musashi stared intently. There was something comforting about the box. I made that myself, said Koatsu modestly. Do you like it? Oh, can you make lacquerware too? Koatsu merely smiled as he looked at this youth who seemed to admire the artifice of man more than the beauty of nature. He was thinking with amusement. After all, he is from the country. Musashi, unaware of Koatsu's lofty attitude, said with great sincerity, It's really beautiful. He couldn't take his eyes off the ink box. I said I made it myself, but actually the poem on it is the work of Konoe Nobutada. So I should say we made it together. Is that the Konoe family the imperial regions came from? The imperial regents come from. Yes, Nobutada is the son of the former regent. My aunt's husband had served the Konoe family for years. What's his name? Matsuo Kaname. Oh, I know Kaname well. I see him whenever I go to the Konoe house, and he sometimes comes to visit us. Is that so? Mother, it's a small world, isn't it? His aunt is the wife of Matsuo Kaname. You don't say, exclaimed Myoshu. She moved away from the fire and placed the vessels for tea before them. There could be no doubt that she was perfectly at home with the tea ceremony. Her movements were elegant yet natural, her delicate hands graceful. Even at 70, she seemed to be the epitome of feminine grace and beauty. Musashi, uncomfortably out of his depth, sat politely on his haunches, in what he hoped was the same fashion as Koatsu. The TK was a plain band known as Yodo Manju. but it rested prettily on a green leaf of a variety not found in the surrounding field. Musashi knew there were set rules of etiquette for serving the tea just as there were for using the sword, and as he watched Myoshu, he admired her mastery of them. Judging her in terms of swordsmanship, he thought to himself, she's perfect, she doesn't leave herself open anywhere. As she whisked the tea, he sensed in her the same unearthly proficiency that one might observe in a master swordsman poised to strike. It's the way, he thought, the essence of art. One has to have it to be perfect at anything. He turned his attention to the tea bowl in front of him. This was the first time he had been served in this fashion, and he had not the slightest notion of what to do next. The tea bowl surprised him, for it resembled something that might have been made by a child playing in the mud. Yet, seen against the color of this bowl, the deep green of the foam on the tea was more serene and ethereal than the sky. He looked helplessly at Koatsu, who had already eaten his tea cake and was holding his tea bowl lovingly in both hands, as one might fondle a warm object on a cold night. He drank down the tea in 2 or 3 sips. "Sir," began Musashi hesitantly, "I'm just an ignorant country boy, and I don't know the first thing about the tea ceremony. I'm not even certain how to drink the tea." Myoshu chided him gently. "Hush, my dear. It doesn't make any difference. There shouldn't be anything sophisticated or esoteric about drinking tea. If you are a country boy, then drink it the way you would in the country. Is it really all right? Of course, manners are not a matter of rules, they come from the heart. It's the same with swordsmanship, isn't it? When you put it that way, yes. If you become self-conscious about the proper way to drink, you won't enjoy the tea. When you use a sword, you can't let your body become too tense. That will break the harmony between the sword and your spirit. Isn't that right?" "Yes, ma'am." Musashi unconsciously bowed his head and waited for the old nun to continue the lesson. She laughed, a little tinkling laugh. "Listen to me talking about swordsmanship when I know nothing at all about it." "I will drink my tea now," said Musashi with renewed confidence. His legs were tired from sitting in formal style, so he crossed them in front of him in a more comfortable position. Swiftly he emptied the tea bowl and set it down again. The tea was very bitter. Not even for the sake of politeness could he force himself to say it was good. "Will you have another cup?" "No, thank you, that's quite enough." Why did these people find good? What did these people find good about this bitter liquid? Why did they talk on so seriously about the simply purity of its flavor and all that sort of thing? Though understanding eluded him, he found it impossible to regard his host with anything but admiration. After all, he reflected, there must be more to tea than he himself had detected. Otherwise, it could not have become the focal point for a whole philosophy of aesthetics and life. Nor would great men like Hideyoshi and Ieyasu have displayed such interest in it. Yagyu Sekishusa, he recalled, was devoting his old age to the way of tea, and Takuan also had spoken of its virtues. Looking down at the tea bowl and the cloth beneath it, he suddenly envisioned the white peony from Sekishusa's garden and felt again the thrill it had given him. Now, inexplicably, the tea bowl struck him in the same forceful way. He wondered for a moment if he had gasped out loud. He reached out, picked up the bowl lovingly, and placed it on his knee. His eyes shone as he examined it. He felt an excitement he had never experienced before. As he studied the bottom of the vessel and the traces of the potter's spatula, he realized that the lines had the same keenness as Sekishu's slicing of the peony stem. This unpretentious bowl, too, had been made by a genius. It revealed the touch of the spirit, the mysterious insight. He could hardly breathe. Why, he knew not, but he sensed the strength of the master craftsman. It came to him silently but unmistakably, for he was far more sensitive to the latent force that resided here than most people would have been. He rubbed the bowl, unwilling to lose physical contact with it. Koatsu, he said, I don't know any more about the utensils than I know about tea, but I would guess that this vessel was made by a very skillful potter. Why do you say that? The artist's words were as gentle as his face. With its sympathetic eyes and well-formed mouth, the corners of his eyes turned down a bit, giving him an air of gravity, but there were teasing wrinkles about the edges. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel it. Exactly what do you feel? Tell me. Musashi thought for a moment and said, well, I can't express it very clearly, but there's something superhuman about this sharp cut in the clay. Koatsu had the attitude of the true artist. He did not suppose for a moment that other people knew much about his own art, and was reasonably certain Musashi was no exception. His lips tightened. What about the cut, Musashi? It's extremely clean. Is that all? No, it's more complicated than that. There's something big and daring about the man who made this. Anything else? The potter himself was as sharp as a sword from Sagami, yet he enveloped the whole thing in beauty. This tea bowl looks very simple, but there's a certain haughtiness about it, something regal and arrogant, as though he didn't regard other people as being quite human. As a person, the man who made this would be difficult to fathom, I think. But whoever he is, I bet he's famous. Won't you tell me who it was? His name, Koatsu's heavy lips broke into a laugh. His name is Koatsu, but this is just something I made for fun. Musashi, not knowing he had been undergoing a test, was genuinely surprised and impressed to hear that Koatsu was able to make his own ceramics. What affected him more than the man's artistic versatility, however, was the human profundity concealed within this ostensibly plain tea bowl. It disturbed him a little to recognize the depth of Koatsu's spiritual resources. Accustomed to measuring men in terms of their swordsmanship, he suddenly decided that his yardstick was too short. The thought humbled him. Here was yet another man before whom he must admit defeat. For all his splendid victory of the morning, he was now no more than a bashful youth. You like ceramics too, don't you? Koatsu said. You seem to have a good eye for pottery. I doubt whether that's true, Musashi replied modestly. I was only saying what came into my head. Please forgive me if I said something foolish. Well, of course, you couldn't be expected to know a great deal about the subject, because to make a single good tea bowl involves a lifetime of experience. But you do have a feeling for aesthetics, a rather firm instinctive grasp. I suppose studying swordsmanship has developed your eye to a slight extent. There seemed to be something close to admiration in Koatsu's remark, but as an older man, he could not bring himself to praise the boy. Not only would it not be dignified, it might also go to his head. Presently the servant returned with more wild greens, and Myoshu prepared the grill. As she took it up on small plates, which also appeared to have been made by Koatsu, a jar of fragrant sake was heated. and the picnic feast began. The tea ceremony food was too light and delicate for Musashi's taste. His constitution craved more body and stronger flavor. Yet he made a dutiful attempt to savor the thin aroma of the leafy mixture, for he acknowledged that there was much he could learn from Koetsu and his charming mother. As the time passed, he began to look nervously about the field. Eventually, he turned to his host and said, "It has been very pleasant, but I should go now. I would like to stay, but I'm afraid my opponent's men might come and cause trouble. I don't want to involve you in anything like that. I hope I will have the opportunity to see you again." Myosho, rising to see him off, said, "If you're ever in the vicinity of Ho-Ami Lane, don't fail to stop in to see us." "Yes, please come and visit us. We can have a nice long talk," Koetsu added. Despite Musashi's fears, there was no sign of the Yoshioka students. Having taken his leave, he paused to look back at his two new friends on their wreck. Yes, theirs was a world apart from his. His own long, narrow road would never lead him to Koetsu's sphere of peaceful pleasures. He walked silently toward the edge of the field, his head bowed in thought. Too many Kojirōs. In the little drinking shop on the city's outskirts, the smell of burning wood and boiling food filled the air. It was only a shack, floorless, with a plank for a table and a few stools scattered about. Outside, the last glow of sunset made it seem that some distant building was on fire, and crows circling the Toji pagoda looked like black ashes rising from the flames. 3 or 4 shopkeepers and an itinerant monk sat at the makeshift table, while in a corner several workmen gambled for drinks. The top they spent was a copper coin with a stick stuck through the hole in the middle. "Yoshioka Seijuro has really got himself in a mess this time," said one of the shopkeepers, "and I for one couldn't be happier. A toast." "I'll drink to that," said another man. "More sake," another called to the proprietor. The shopkeepers drank at a steady, fast pace. Gradually, only a faint light outlined the shop's curtain, and one of them bellowed, "I can't see whether I'm raising my cup to my nose or my mouth. It's so dark in here. How about some light?" "Hold on a minute, I'm taking care of it," the proprietor said wearily. Flames were soon shooting from the open ovenware oven. The darker it grew outside, the redder were the rays from the fire. "I get mad every time I think of it," said the first man. "The money those people owe me for fish and charcoal. It came to quite a bit, I can tell you. Just look at the size of the school. I swore I would get it at year end. So what happened when I got down there? Those Yoshioka bullies were blocking the entrance, blustering and threatening everybody. The nerve, throwing every bill collector out. Honest shopkeepers who had been giving them credit for years. No use crying about it now. What's done is done. Besides, after that fight as the Randaiji, they are the ones with reason to cry, not us. Oh, I'm not mad anymore. They got what was coming to them. Imagine Seijuro going down with hardly a fight. Did you see it? No, but I heard about it from someone who did. Musashi knocked him down with a single blow, and with a wooden sword too. Crippled for life he is. What will become of the school? It doesn't look good. The students are out for Musashi's blood. If they don't kill him, they will lose face completely. The Yoshioka name will go down. The Yoshioka name will have to come down, and Musashi is so strong, everybody figures the only person who might be able to beat him is Denshichiro, the younger brother. They are looking all over for him. I didn't know there was a younger brother. Hardly anyone did, but he's the better swordsman, according to what I heard. He's the black sheep of the family. Never shows his face at the school unless he needs money. Spends all his time eating and drinking on his name, sponges of people who respect his father. They make quite a pair. How did an outstanding man like Yoshioka Campbell wind up with two sons like that? It just goes to show that blood isn't everything. A ronin was slammed in a stupor next to the oven. He had been there for quite a while and the proprietor had left him alone, but now he roused him. "Sir, please move back a little," he said as he put more kindling on the fire. "The fire might burn your kimono." Matahachi's sake-reddened eyes opened slowly. I know, just leave me alone." This sake shop wasn't the only place where Matahachi had heard about the bout at the Rendaiji. It was on everyone's tongue, and the more famous Musashi became, the more wretched his wayward friend felt. "Hey, bring me another," he called. "You don't have to heat it, just pour it in my cup." "Are you all right, sir? Your face is awful pale." "What's that to you? It's my face, isn't it?" He leaned against the wall again and folded his arms. "I'll show them one of these days," he thought. "Swordsmanship's not the only road to success. Whether you get there by being rich or having a title or becoming a gangster, so long as you get to the top, you are all right. Musashi and I are both 23. Not many of these fellows who make names for themselves at that age end up amounting to much. By the time they are 30, they are old and tottering, aging child prodigies." Word of the duel at the Rendaiji had spread to Osaka, bringing Matahachi immediately to Kyoto. Though he had no clear purpose in mind, Musashi's triumph weighed so heavily on his spirit that he had to see for himself what the situation was. "He's riding high now," thought Matahachi antagonistically, "but he's due for a fall. There are plenty of good men at the Yoshioka school, the 10 swordsmen, Danshichiro, lots of others." He could hardly wait for the day Musashi would receive his comeuppance. In the meantime, his own luck was bound to change. "Oh, I'm thirsty," he said aloud. By sliding his back up the wall, he managed to stand. All eyes watched as he bent over a water barrel in the corner, almost dunking his head, and drank several giant gulps from a dipper. Flinging the dipper aside, he pushed back the shop curtain and staggered out. The proprietor soon recovered from his gaping surprise and ran after the wobbly figure. "Sir, you haven't paid yet," he called. "What's that?" Matahachi was barely articulate. "I think you've forgotten something, sir." "I don't forget anything. I mean the menu for your sake." "Is that so? Sorry to bother you. I don't have any money." "No money?" "Yeah, I don't have any at all. I did until a few days ago, but..." "You mean you were sitting there drinking? Why, you..." "Shut up." After fishing around in his kimono, Matahachi came up with the dead samurai's pillbox, which he flung at the man. "Stop kicking up such a fuss. I'm a samurai with 2 swords. You see that, don't you? I haven't sunk low enough to sneak away without paying. That thing's worth more than the sake I had. You can keep the change." The pillbox struck the man squarely in the face. He squealed with pain and covered his eyes with his hands. The other customers, who had stuck their heads through slits in the shop curtain, shouted in indignation. Like many a drunk, they were indignant at seeing another of their kind welch on his bill. "The bastard! Rotten cheat! Let's teach him a lesson." They ran out and surrounded Matahachi. "Bastard, pay up. You're not going to get away with this. Crook, you probably pull the same stunt all the time. If you can't pay, we'll hang you by the neck." Matahachi put his hand to his sword and to scare them off. "You think you can?" he snarled. "That should be fun. Just try it. Do you know who I am?" "We know what you are, a filthy rodent from the garbage heap, with less pride than a beggar and more gall than a thief." "You are asking for it," cried Matahachi, glaring and knitting his brow fiercely. "You would sing a different tune if you know my name." "Your name? What's so special about it?" I'm Sasaki Kojiro, fellow student of Ito Itosai, swordsman of the Chujo style. You must have heard of me. Don't make me laugh. Never mind the fancy names, just pay up. One man stretched out his hand to grab at Matahachi, who cried, "If the pillbox isn't enough, I'll give you a bit of my sword too." Quickly drawing the weapon, he struck at the man's hand, cutting it clean off. The others, seeing that they had underestimated their adversary, reacted as if it were their blood that had been spilled. They sprinted off into the darkness. A look of triumph on his face, Matahachi challenged them anyway. "Come back, you vermin. I'll show you how Kojiro uses his sword when he's serious. Come on, I'll take your heads off for you." He looked up at the heavens and giggled, his white teeth gleaming in the darkness as he exulted over his success. Then abruptly his mood changed. His face wrapped in sadness. He seemed on the verge of tears. Ramming his sword clumsily back into its scabbard, he started walking unsteadily away. The pillbox on the ground sparkled under the stars. Made of black sandalwood with a shell inlay, it didn't look very valuable, but a glint of the blue nacre gave it the subtle beauty of a tiny cluster of fireflies. Coming out of the shack, the itinerant monk saw the pillbox and picked it up. He started to walk on, but then went back and stood under the shop's eaves. In the dim light from a crack in the wall, he examined the design and the cord carefully. He thought, "This is definitely the master's. He must have had it with him when he was killed at Fushimi Castle. Yes, here's his name, Temki, written on the bottom." The monk hurried off after Matahachi. "Sasaki," he called, "Sasaki Kojiro." Matahachi heard the name, but in his befuddled condition, failed this time to connect it with himself. He stumbled on from Kujo Avenue up Horikawa Street. The monk caught up with him and took hold of the end of his scabbard. "Wait, Kojiro," he said. "Wait just a moment, eh?" Matahachi hiccuped. "Do you mean me? You are Sasaki Kojiro, aren't you?" A severe light shone in the monk's eyes. Matahachi became slightly more sober. "Yes, I'm Kojiro. What's that got to do with you? I want to ask you a question." "Well, what is it?" "Just where did you get this pillbox?" "Pillbox?" he asked vacantly. "Yes, where did you get it? That's all I want to know. How did it come into your possession?" The monk spoke rather formally. He was still young, perhaps 26 or so, and did not appear to be one of the spiritless beggar monks who wander from temple to temple living on charity. In one hand he had a round oak staff more than 6 feet long. "Who are you anyway?" demanded Matahachi, concern beginning to show on his face. "That doesn't matter. Why don't you just tell me where this came from?" "It didn't come from anywhere. It's mine, always has been." "You are lying. Tell me the truth." "I've told you the truth already." "You refuse to confess. Confess to what?" asked Matahachi innocently. "You are not Kojiro." Immediately the stuff in the monk's hand split the air. Matahachi's instincts pulled him backward, but he was still too groggy to react quickly. The staff connected, and with a shriek of pain, he staggered back 15 or 20 feet before landing on his backside. On his feet again, he took off. The monk gave chase, and after a few paces hauled the oak staff. Matahachi heard it coming and lowered his head. The flying missile sailed past his ear. Terrified, he doubled his speed. When the monk reached the fallen weapon, he seized it and, taking careful aim, threw it again, but again Matahachi ducked. Running at full speed for more than a mile, Matahachi passed Rokujo Avenue and approached Gojo. Finally decided he had lost his pursuer and stopped. Wrapping his chest, he panted, "That stuff! Terrible weapon! A man has to be careful these days." Cold, sober, and burning with thirst, he began searching for a well. He found one at the far end of a narrow alley. He pulled up the bucket and guzzled his fill, then put the bucket on the ground and splashed water on his sweaty face. Who can that have been? He wondered, and what did he want? But as soon as he began to feel normal again, dejection set in. Before his eyes, he saw the agonized, chinless face of the corpse at Fushimi. That he had used up the dead man's money hurt his conscience, and not for the first time he thought about atoning for his misdeeds. When I have money, he vowed, the first thing I'm going to do is pay back what I borrowed. Maybe after I'm successful, I'll put up a memorial stone to him. The certificate is all that's left. Maybe I should get rid of it. If the wrong person found out I have it, it might lead to complications. He reached inside his kimono and touched the scroll, which he always kept tucked in the stomach wrapper under his obi. Though this was rather uncomfortable. Even if he couldn't convert it into a vast amount of money, it might lead to some opening, to that magic rank on the ladder of success. The unfortunate experience with Akakabe Yasuma hadn't cured him of dreaming. The certificate had already come in handy, for he had found that by showing it at small, nameless dojos or to innocent townspeople with an urge to learn swordsmanship, he could not only command their respect but receive a free meal and a place to sleep, without so much as asking. This was the way he had survived during the past 6 months. No reason to throw it away. What's wrong with me? I seem to be getting more and more timid. Maybe that's what keeps me from getting ahead in the world. From now on, I'm not going to be like that. I'll be big and bold like Musashi. I'll show them. He looked around at the shanties surrounding the well. The people living here struck him as enviable. Their houses sank under the weight of the mud and weeds on their roofs, but at least they had shelter. Somewhat abjectly, he peeped in on some of the families. In one dwelling, he saw a husband and wife facing each other over at the single pot that held their meager dinner. Near them were a son and daughter, together with their grandmother, doing some piecework. Despite the paucity of worldly goods, there existed a spirit of family unity, a treasure that even great men like Hideyoshi and Ieyasu lack. Matahachi reflected that the more poverty-stricken people were, the stronger their mutual affection grew. Even the poor could know the joy of being human. With a tinge of shame, he recalled the clash of wills that had led him to stalk angrily away from his own mother at Sumiyoshi. I shouldn't have done that to her, he thought. Wherever her faults, there will never be anyone else who loves me the way she does. During the week they had been together, going to his great annoyance from his shrine to temple and temple to shrine, Osuki had told him time and time again about the miraculous powers of the canon at Kiyomizudera. No bodhisattva in the world works greater wonders, she had assured him. Less than 3 weeks after I went there to pray, Canon led Takezo to me, brought him right to the temple. I know you don't care much for religion, but you better have faith in that canon. Now that he thought of it, she had mentioned that after the beginning of the new year, she planned to go to Kiyomizu and ask Canon's protection for the Hoinden family. There's where he should go. He had no place to sleep tonight. He could spend the night on the porch, and there was a chance he would see his mother again. As he headed down dark streets toward Gojo Avenue, he was joined by a pack of barking stray mongrels, not, unfortunately, of the sort that could be silenced by throwing a rock or two at them. But he was used to being barked at, and it didn't bother him when the dogs came up, snarling and baring their teeth. At Matsubara, a pine woods near Gojo Avenue, he saw another pack of cars gather around a tree. The ones escorting him loped off to join them. There were more than he could count, all racing a great racket, some jumping 5 and 6 feet up the tree trunk. Straining his eye, he could barely make out a girl crouched trembling on a branch, or at least he was fairly sure it was a girl. He shook his fist and shouted to drive the dogs away. When this had no effect, he threw rocks, also to no avail. Then he remembered having heard that the way to scare dogs away was to get down on all fours and roar loudly. So he tried that, but this did not work either, possibly because there were so many of them, jumping about like fish in a net, wagging their tails, scratching the bark of the tree and howling viciously. It suddenly occurred to him that a woman might consider it ludicrous for a young man with 2 swords to be down on all fours, acting like an animal. With a curse, he jumped to his feet. The next instant, one dog gave a final howl and died. When the others saw Matahachi's bloody sword hanging above the body, they grew together, their bony backs heaving up and down like ocean waves. "You want more, huh?" Sensing the threat of the sword, the dogs scattered in all directions. "You up here. You up there," he called. "You can come down now." He heard a pretty little metallic tinkle among the pine needles. "It's Akemi," he gasped. "Akemi, is that you?" And it was Akemi's voice that called down. "Who are you, Matahachi? Can't you tell from my voice? It couldn't be. Did you say Matahachi? What are you doing up there? You are not the type to be frightened by dogs. I'm not up here because of the dogs. Well, whatever you're hiding from, come down." From her perch on the limb, Akemi peered around into the silent darkness. "Matahachi," she said urgently, "get away from here. I think he's coming for me." "He? Who's he?" "There's no time to talk about it. A man, he offered to help me at the end of last year, but he's a beast. At first I thought he was kind, then he did all sorts of cruel things to me. Tonight I saw a chance to get away." "It's not Ogo who's after you." "No, not mother. It's a man. Gion Toji, maybe." "Don't be ridiculous. I'm not afraid of him." Oh, he's right over there. If you stay here, he will find me. He will do something awful to you too. Hide quick." "Do you expect me to run just because some man has turned up?" He stood where he was, fidgeting with indecision. He had half a mind to perform a valiant deed. He was a man. He had a woman in distress on his hands, and he would have liked to make up for the mortification of having been on his hands and knees trying to scare the dogs away. The more Akemi urged him to hide, the more he longed to demonstrate his virility, both to her and to himself. "Who's there?" The words were spoken simultaneously by Matahachi and Kojiro. Kojiro glared at Matahachi's sword and the blood dripping from it. "Who are you?" he demanded belligerently. Matahachi remained silent. Having heard the fear in Akemi's voice, he grew tense. But after a second look, he relaxed. The stranger was tall and well-built, but no older than Matahachi himself. From his boyish hairdo and outfit, Matahachi took him to be a rank novice, and contempt came into his eyes. The monk had given him a real scare, but he was sure he could not lose to this young fop. Could this be the brute who was tormenting Akemi? He wondered. He looks green as a god to me. I haven't heard what it's all about yet, but if he's causing her a lot of trouble, I guess I'll just have to give him a lesson or two. "Who are you?" Kojiro asked again. The force of the utterance was such as to roll away the darkness around them. "Me?" Matahachi answered teasingly. "I'm merely a human being." He grinned deliberately. The blood rushed to Kojiro's face. "So you have no name," he said. "Or could it be that you are ashamed of your name?" Provoked but unafraid, Matahachi retorted. "I see no need to give my name to a stranger, who probably wouldn't recognize it anyway." "Watch how you talk," snapped Kojiro, "but let's leave the fight between you and me until later. I'm going to get that girl down from the tree and take her back where she belongs. You wait here. Don't talk like a fool. What makes you think I will let you have her? What's it got to do with you? That girl's mother used to be my wife, and I'm not going to let her be harmed. If you lay one finger on her, I will slice you to bits. Now, this is interesting. You seem to fancy yourself to be a samurai, though I must say I haven't seen such a bony one for many a day. But there's something you should know. This giant pole on my back has been weeping in its sleep, because not once since it was passed on as a family heirloom has it gotten its fill of blood. It's getting a little rusty too, so now I think I will polish it a bit on that scrawny carcass of yours, and don't try to run away. Matahachi, lacking the sense to see that this was no bluff, said scornfully, "Stop talking so big. If you want to reconsider, now's the time. Just leave while you can still see where you're going. I will spare your life. The same to you, but listen, my fine human being, you boasted that your name was too good to mention to the likes of me. Pray, just what is that illustrious name? It's part of the etiquette of fighting to declare yourself. Or don't you know that? I don't mind telling it, but don't be startled when you hear it. I shall steel myself against surprise. But first, what is your style of swordsmanship?" Matahachi figured that no one would prattle on in this fashion. No one who prattled on in this fashion could be much of a swordsman. His estimation of his opponent dropped even lower. I, he informed Kojiro, hold a certificate in the Chujo style, which branched off from the style of Tojo Seigen. Kojiro, astonished, trying to hide a gasp. Matahachi, believing that he had the advantage, decided it would be foolish not to press it. Mimicking his questioner, he said, "Now, would you tell me your style? It's part of the etiquette of fighting, you know." Later, just who did you learn the Chujo style from? From Kanemaki Jisai, of course, Matahachi answered glibly. Who else? Oh, exclaimed Kojiro, now really puzzled. And do you know Ito Itosai? Naturally, interpreting Kojiro's questions as proof his story was taking effect, Matahachi felt sure the young man would soon propose a compromise. Laying it on a bit thicker, he said, "I suppose there's no reason to hide my connection with Ito Itosai. He was a predecessor of mine. By that I mean that we both study under Kanemaki Jisai. Why do you ask?" Kojiro ignored the question. "Then may I ask again, just who are you?" "I am Sasaki Kojiro." "Say that again." "I am Sasaki Kojiro," Matahachi repeated very politely. After a moment of dumbfounded silence, Kojiro uttered a slow hem and showed his dimples. Matahachi glared at him. "Why do you look at me that way? Does my name take you by surprise?" "I should say it does." "All right then, go away," Matahachi commanded menacingly, raising his chin. Ha ha ha! Kojiro held his stomach to keep from collapsing with laughter. When he finally brought himself under control, he said, "I've met many people in the course of my troubles, but never have I heard anything to compare with this. Now, Sasaki Kojiro, would you kindly tell me who I am? How should I know?" "But you must know. I hope I don't seem to be rude, but just to be sure I heard you right, would you repeat your name one more time?" "Haven't you got ears? I'm Sasaki Kojiro. And I am another human being, I suppose. No question about that. But what's my name?" "Look, you bastard, are you making fun of me?" "No, of course not. I'm quite serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Tell me, Kojiro, what's my name?" "Why make a nuisance of yourself? You answer the question." "All right, I shall ask myself my name, and then at the risk of seeming presumptuous, I shall tell it to you." "Good, let's have it." Don't be startled, idiot. I am Sasaki Kojiro, also known as Ganru. What? Since the days of my ancestors, my family has lived in Iwakuni. The name Kojiro I received from my parents. I am also the person known among swordsmen as Ganru. Now, when and how do you suppose it came about that there are two Sasaki's Kojiros in this world? Then you are. Yes, and even though a great number of men are traveling about the